What's up guys? Long time no see. Colin, I'm a footwear designer, and today we're taking a look at the latest Brooks classic, the Ghost 16, to see if they're a fresh new take for the modern runner or just another version of your dad's favorite kicks. Now, we've never done a deep dive on Brooks, and they've been around a really long time. So I'm gonna try and fit everything in. Primarily, they get their start in 1914 in Philadelphia, making bath shoes and ballet shoes under the name Brooks shoe, eventually transitioning from the ballet flats to baseball cleats and football cleats, as well as supporting US war efforts by making military combat boots. They're one of the first brands to start listening to athletes and incorporating things like contoured arch supports, engineering different ways for the lacing structures to be to support the foot, and Brooks is like majorly focused on cleated footwear. There's a story where Mickey Mantle, the all-star MLB player, buys 2 pairs like unprompted from the current Brooks CEO at the time in the 1960s in the locker room. By the time the 1970s roll around, the US gets swept up in this running and jogging craze, and of course Brooks is trying to get into the mix. And they bring all of those years of athlete-focused innovation and footwear innovation into the running market, and they're like particularly focused on supporting runners' feet. They're one of the first brands ever to start using EVA foam and Gore-Tex. They're one of the first brands to create, the Varus wedge and have patents. Brooks had their moment in supporting a few basketball players, making basketball shoes, but Brooks' main thing since the 1970s is staking their claim as a powerhouse in the running market. And it's partially because of their focus on orthopedic style innovations. Because of that, it's not really all that surprising that Brooks is probably your dad's favorite running shoe brand of all time. My father-in-law has a rotation of probably 10 different pairs, all the way from the grass cutters to his night out pairs. I mean, he loves these things. Brooks has also sort of been having a moment lately, capturing a younger audience and getting a piece of that millennial running pie that's been fresh out of the oven for the last few years. So after all that history and orthopedic advancement, has Brooks been left in the dust for the dads? Or are they still pushing the limits?
Just taking pictures of my cat, okay? This is our most popular camera harness, and in my opinion, the most comfortable way to carry one camera. Because as you can see, made of premium leather, solid brass hardware, so it's not gonna wear out and rust and ruin your clothes. But more importantly, look at the contouring. Not just straight lines, not straight straps like every other camera harness out there. It actually contours and flows with your body to make that weight distributed a lot more equally. And even when you're not using it, if you want all that weight off your back and shoulders, got these little hip clips on our custom hardware. It allows you to clip it right to your hip, to put it more on your hips where it's a lot more comfortable to have that kind of weight. So ease your back pain, ease your neck pain, put all the weight of this heavy camera not on your neck, put it equally distributed with the Lone Bandit camera harness.
The brand is Brooks. The style is the Ghost 16. They weigh 9.7 ounces. They cost $140 and they're made in Vietnam. Let's see what Brooks says about the shoes. Step into the new men's Ghost 16. We updated the soft and reliable cushioning to be lighter weight and enhanced the upper to deliver a secure fit and just right breathability. If you're interested in a pair of Ghost 16s, buy them from the links below. Before we get too deep into the upper, I just wanna be honest with each other here and talk about how boring and formulaic running shoe uppers have become these days. Look at even Brooks of old. They have sweet overlays of suede and leather and mesh and other materials, all meant for very specific purposes. Really nowadays, it feels like uppers for running shoes are sort of overlooked for materiality. Everyone knows that they're just gonna use an engineered knit or mesh and slap some plastic overlays on top for some added durability. That sort of seems like it's it. This upper supposedly was designed to provide some more stretch, so hopefully not as much of an oversight as some that we've checked out. This material is an engineered air mesh upper. 67.3% recycled materials, which is apparently 4.3 plastic bottles diverted from landfills. According to Brooks, there is added plastic plate on the heel to act as an external counter and stiffener for the internal counter. On the burn test, it's definitely synthetic. No surprise here. It's a mesh made out of plastic yarns. So why would you want something like that for running? If we go back to their claims, their positioning for this shoe, they say that the upper had been re-engineered to give you stretch, but still supportive. I think that this upper material is a little bit like a spacer mesh. We've done deep dives on what spacer mesh means. You can go check out some videos that we'll link, but essentially it just means that it's a fabric with a little bit of space in the middle. It has a bit of dimension and thickness. And you can think about that as being more like a foam than a fabric. That foam has a little added give. And because it has some added give, it also can stretch a bit. Because it's not traditional like spandex, it's not gonna stretch a ton. So not overly stretchy, but just a little bit of give. The inside, the lining, it looks like it's an unlined vamp, which is pretty normal for running shoes. They try to keep these like pretty loose and pretty lightweight so that you can get a little bit more breathability. The toe puff, which is essentially the stiffener at the front of the toe that gives it a little shape, is bigger than usual, and it runs up like a lot of the vamp. This is kind of ideal for running because a larger toe puff can prevent deforming in the upper. So when you're running, your foot is a dynamic structure. It's moving in all these different ways. And if it was just a standard mesh, it might buckle and collapse in on your toes. And then that can create hot spots and create blisters. So I have had this exact issue with a few pairs of Brooks in the past where the toe puff is stiff but not large enough, so it sort of buckles in these odd places when you move your foot, and it creates these ugly indents and kind of touches the top of your feet and kind of throws you off. So I like to see that they've added this kind of larger toe puff to add structure, but it's not gonna buckle. The insole is a removable closed cell foam insole, and it has pretty big arch shape molded into it, which totally makes sense given Brooks' heritage in bringing supportive and orthopedic technology and innovation into their shoes. Under this insole, you can see it's a pour-on foam lasting layer rather than a stiff board or textile. This is actually a lot better for you in a running shoe particularly because it just gives you a little added comfort, a little added cushioning. Traditionally, Strobel board materials or Strobel materials, Texon fiber boards or non-wovens are used because they don't stretch, and then you can glue them onto your cushioning component. But as time has gone on and foams have become softer and more comfortable, when you put glue and a non-stretchable textile over the foam that you're standing on, it becomes less comfortable, and it basically ruins the purpose of spending all that money on a really nice, comfortable, high-tech piece of foam. So, one way to combat that is to make the lasting material foam itself, and it adds a little extra comfort on there. It may sound like trivial, but it basically adds up to being a little bit more of a comfortable shoe. Moving on to the midsole. Now, this is probably why upper materials aren't interesting anymore, especially to like the more than average running consumer who's very focused on their shoes and how good their shoes are, because midsoles are where most everyone is focused for running these days. They want to know what the technology is, where it comes from, what it does for them, and who can blame them. It's really where the rubber meets the road, honestly. It affects the sort of running experience that you're gonna have. On this shoe, Brooks uses a pretty advanced material. They call it nitrogen injected DNA loft. This stuff is actually pretty cool. Most people would say that Brooks was one of the first to start using this type of foam. They're called supercritical or gas infused foams. Essentially, this midsole starts as like a rigid, hard plastic puck in the shape of the shoe, but just scaled way down. Like it looks like a doll shoe, but it's just rigid plastic. And they put it into a thing called an autoclave, which is essentially just a huge pressure chamber. And then that chamber is filled with nitrogen, and the gas essentially gets forced into the plastic. And then when the chamber opens, the hard plastic pucks explode and basically expand into these soft, bouncy midsoles. And somehow they're doing, mathematic wizardry so that this tiny thing can explode into the exact size and shape they need it to be. It's almost like, did you ever go to the dollar store as a kid and you got the little foam, like pills, and you put the pill thing in the water and then the pill dissolves and creates this giant thing? It's sort of like that. It grows in water, but you're basically, shoving gas into this plastic puck, and then it just explodes and creates this really lively and interesting foam, and actually very durable foam as well. In terms of Brooks' sort of classification of this foam, they call it their standard cushioning level. So their standard, more, most. This one is considered neutral support. On our Shore A durometer test, we're getting 13 to 15, which seems to be about the average for running shoes these days. They used to be a lot stiffer. On the ball drop test, we're getting 19.9 inches, which is number 8 overall. On the bar drop test, we're getting 6.5 inches, which is the upper middle of all of our tests. It's pretty average overall, considering how advanced the technology is, but really, I think it becomes more special when the shoe gets older and it still feels bouncy as compared to softer foams that compress faster over time. That's a pretty big deal for a daily trainer, which is what this shoe is. It will see upwards of 500 miles of running, keeping them feeling consistent from mile 1 to 500. It can be a difficult task. Moving down to the outsole, the material is just a rubber outsole. Probably has the most rubber coverage of the Hoka and On shoes that we're seeing these days. The durometer Shore A test is a 55 Shore A, so it's average for sneaker construction. This is just a standard cemented construction, obviously. All right, I think that's everything we can see from the outside. I'm really excited to see what this foam looks like on the inside because of the foaming process. It's really interesting. So let's cut it in half, see what's going on.
The number one thing we've ever done is blood core leather, and now you can get the mugs too and the slugs in blood core. You got the shearling line, keep you nice and warm in the winter without the fur popping on the top like J-Lo. So get on that limited edition email list link below so you get early access to sizing guide.
All right, so it looks like there's not much to hide. Pour-on layer, foam midsole, rubber outsole. It has a 3mm thick synthetic counter, which locks in the foot, sort of like a basketball shoe. We're measuring the stack heights and we're looking at a 12mm drop. A 12mm drop is pretty insane. More minimally dropped shoes are more popular these days. So Hoka has about 6mm, most others around 8 to 9mm. A larger drop basically just means you don't have to use your calves as much because your foot is in a shortened calf position already. It optimizes your biomechanics for heel striking. This is definitely an older touch and thought process to running. Back in the day, we thought you wanted your stride to be as cyclical as possible and you wanted to be heel striking. And honestly, most beginner runners don't have proper form, and so they will heel strike naturally anyway. The Ghost 16 is kind of like the beginner's daily trainer running shoe, so it makes sense that they're giving it their most drop of any shoe just to protect those runners who are already going to naturally heel strike. But again, it is an older thought process and it's worth keeping in mind for the Ghost 16 customer for sure. It would likely require a consistent year-to-year spec, especially on a shoe like the Ghost 16. So it's definitely an older touch and thought process for a running shoe, but keep in mind, this is the 16th iteration of the Ghost. The Ghost is a hugely popular model for Brooks, and the customer who purchased this shoe would likely require or want a consistent year-to-year spec to keep it their favorite shoe. Totally makes sense. Overall, is this a dad shoe or a performance running shoe primed for the super popular modern running market? To me, I think it's a little bit of both. Overall, it's a very classic Brooks. Nothing too offensive or out there, with classic Brooks engineering, like a high arch support and a massive heel to toe drop. So it has those dad shoe elements, but I think it tempers them with a new technology that's pretty advanced and quite comfortable. As a whole, at $140, I think it's a pretty good neutral daily trainer model. It may not win any design aesthetic awards, but I believe it's going to be a solid daily trainer in the quiver for runners without much stability or pain issues. I love the addition of DNA Loft Nitro Foam that Brooks has been transitioning most of their product line to, and I think because of this tech, I think it's going to be awesome for people who want a shoe that they can put a lot of miles in and then some more. So I think it's worth it. Totally grab a pair if 12mm is up to you. Personally, I prefer the Ghost Max. The Ghost Max has a little bit lower stack, which means you actually get a little more cushioning. All right, guys, do you think we should review any more Brooks running shoes? Let us know in the comments down below. What did you think we did? If there's anything else that you guys want to see on the channel, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. All right, peace, guys.